My name is Kevin Rubia. I am the president of Watabaruku Advanced Toastmasters Club. Welcome to this online experience, our 140th online experience. If you're wondering what Watabaruku is Swahili for people who gather for social purposes. We are an online advanced Toastmasters club founded in District 114, East Africa and Indian Ocean Islands, and open to members worldwide, dual or otherwise. We exist to provide a supportive and positive learning experience in which members are empowered to develop their communication and leadership skills, resulting in greater self-confidence and personal growth. We do this in these three ways. One is the triple-tiered evaluations based on the Toastmasters International Accredited Speaker Program, Judges Guide and Ballot, which you'll get to experience this evening. We also have themes in communication manuals of the Toastmasters Legacy Program. And lastly, educational workshops like one next week, designed to deepen communication and evaluation skills. We meet from 6:45 to 9 p.m. East African time on the second and fourth Fridays of each month. Anyone can attend, but to become a member, you need to have at least completed level 3 of any path. I do not serve Watabaruku alone. I have an esteemed club executive committee to serve beside me, and I will introduce them shortly. I'll start with our Vice President of Education, Fatma Amio, who will unmute, tell us about her role as VPE. Over to you, Fatma.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Good evening, everyone. My role as VPE is to make sure that we enjoy in our online experience. Looking forward to the engagement. Back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Madam VPE. In Toastmasters, we like clapping. Whenever someone speaks, let us react using the clapping emojis, or better yet, put on our videos and clap for anyone who speaks. Next is our Vice President of Membership, Kevin Kimbio, who is not with us, but is alive and well. He's in charge of the member experience and bringing members to the club. From there, we have the Vice President of Public Relations, none other than Sarah Wanjiko, responsible for many of you joining us today. She publicizes the club. From there, we have the Club Secretary. Club Secretary, I believe, is with us. Minem Minor DTM, over to you. She is not here at the moment. She is in charge of our club records. Then we have our club treasurer, also absent but alive and well, in a different country, by the way, goals. She serves in the treasury docket, ensuring our monies are put well. Last and not least is our Sergeant at Arms, who I will introduce shortly to give us the meeting rules and guidelines. But before I do that, I'd like to recognize our immediate past president, Robert Karanja, DTM, who will unmute shortly and give us a few words of wisdom.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I was hoping in my retirement I'll no longer be needed to give any kind of words of wisdom. I'll be receiving them from everybody else. It's a great pleasure for me to be here this evening. Looking forward to an amazing meeting ahead. Back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Immediate Past President. Over to you, Sergeant at Arms, to give us the online meeting guidelines.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will share my screen for that report. Meanwhile, my role as SAA is to maintain order, manage meeting logistics, and ensure a welcoming environment for all attendees. I'm sure for those who joined early, you did enjoy the music. Confirm when you can see my screen, please.
Yes.
Give me a thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Okay. Thank you for that. So we will start with the online club meeting statement. By attending this remote club meeting, you agree to the privacy policy of Toastmasters International, as well as their unassociated remote hosting service. Some of your personal information, such as name, image, and any shared messages may be shared with other meeting participants and will be recorded by Toastmasters International, who may use the recording in the future as it sees fit. Your remote attendance hereby discharges Toastmasters International from all claims, demands, rights, promises, damages, and liabilities arising out of or in connection with the use or distribution of said video recordings, including but not limited to any claims for invasion of privacy, appropriation of likeness, or defamation. Our renaming convention is as follows. For Toastmasters with roles, you will rename as hashtag your role underscore and your name. For instance, hashtag timer, Tina Tana. Toastmasters without roles, you will rename as name, club, Toastmasters. Say Alibaba, traders, Toastmasters, sorry. For non-Toastmasters, you will start with guest underscore name. For instance, guest underscore Simon Makonde. The chat master will post the complete renaming convention in the chat. Please send them a private message if you need help renaming yourself. Please keep your video on throughout the online experiences if possible. Mute your microphone unless it is your turn to speak. Use the Zoom charts and reaction buttons to engage. Share feedback and vote when the polls are launched. Enjoy, visit again, and consider becoming a member. I will now stop sharing. Back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Madam Sergeant at Arms, for that elucidation of the meeting guidelines. Next is our online session, our business section of this meeting. Minutes of the previous club meeting were circulated by our club secretary, and at this juncture, I'd like us to adopt those minutes. Before we do so, is there any amendments to those minutes? There being no amendments, do you have any objections to adopting the minutes? With no objection, I declare the minutes of meeting number 139 of Watabaruku Advanced Toastmasters Club hereby adopted. As we wait for our Toastmaster of the day to join us, there are few announcements we can make at this juncture. The first one being our online workshop that we will have next week. On the 30th and 31st, all of us, I can see the Toastmaster of the day calling. Madam Vice President of Education, could you please handle that announcement as I answer him? Madam VPE. Madam Sergeant at Arms, please make the announcement on the workshop that will be held next week as I find out how our Toastmaster of the day is.
Noted, Mr. President. Next week, as you've heard, there will be a workshop, an online workshop that will be held. You will be informed more of the same on your charts, and please plan to attend. We will allow our Mr. President 2 minutes. A minute, sorry, not 2.
Okay. As the president is handling that matter,
Yes,
may I
over to you.
please? Yes. Next week, we invite all of you. That will be on 30th and 31st, where we will be having an evaluation workshop. In this workshop, we are going to have the previous District 114 evaluation champions. So you're cordially invited. Look out for the posters which will be shared. We'll see whether I can share one in our meeting today. So you're all invited. Please diarize 30th and 31st. We'll be having our evaluation workshop and you're all invited. Back to you, SA.
Thank you, Fatma. I'm now going to invite our TMOD, our Toastmaster of the day. Are you there?
Our Toastmaster of the day is having difficulties joining us. However,
Oh, no.
our Madam Secretary is handling that with him. Thank you, Madam Sergeant at Arms and Madam VPE for holding fort. Great. I will introduce what a Toastmasters meeting looks like as we wait for our Toastmaster of the day to join us. Every Toastmasters meeting is led by a Toastmaster of the day. The Toastmaster of the day is in charge of running the program, which has been shared via chat. Each meeting comprises of 3 main sections. The first one is the prepared speeches. This is where members like you and I get to deliver speeches which are part of our Pathways educational program. Then we have a session called Table Topics. Table Topics is the impromptu speaking section. That's where participants who have not had an opportunity to participate actively by speaking get to respond to random questions posed to them in 1 to 2 minutes. Last is the evaluation section. And in Watabaruku, each speaker receives 3 evaluations, 1 on content, 1 on delivery, and 1 on language. Not only that, you and I get to participate in an audience feedback poll. After every speaker will have a chance to give feedback in written form once the Sergeant at Arms launches the poll. Finally, we'll have reports, which are part of the evaluation section, where we get to see where we excelled as meeting participants and where we can work on moving forward. For this meeting, we have two icebreakers. But before we get to know about these speeches, let's go ahead and learn from our tag team. Tag team include the timer, counter, and grammarian. To introduce her role as timer, I invite to the stage Akaco Ekirapa.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests. I'm very happy to be here today, visiting from Summer Toastmasters Club, and thank you for the invitation. My role as timer tonight is to ensure that we keep within time. And to do that, I have my tools of trade. The prepared speeches for tonight, as you've had, are icebreakers, which will be 4 to 6 minutes. I will change my screen to green at the 4th minute. At the 5th minute, I will transition to yellow. And then at the 6th minute to red. For the table topic session, the speakers will have between 1 to 2 minutes. And for this, I will change my screen to green at 1 minute, to yellow at 1 minute and 30 seconds, and red at 2 minutes. For the evaluations, the evaluators have between 2 to 3 minutes. I will change my screen to green at 2 minutes, at 2 minutes and 30 seconds to yellow, and then at 3 minutes, red. The general evaluator will have between 5 to 7 minutes, and I will also change my flag between 5 minutes, 6 minutes, and 7 minutes when time is up. I would like to encourage the speakers to keep within time, and I wish you a perspicacious meeting. Thank you, and back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, timer Akaco. As we give our Toastmaster of the Day time to settle in, I'll call upon our next role taker, our super grammarian of this evening, DTM Robert Karanja. Please introduce your role.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. It's a great joy for me to be the super grammarian for this meeting. My role is going to be threefold, and the first aspect of the super grammarian role is to help us broaden our vocabulary, and it is one of my responsibilities to introduce the word of the day. The word of the day for this meeting is perspicacious. Perspicacious. And this word, it is an adjective, and some of its derivatives are perspicaciously, perspicaciousness, and perspicacity. What does it mean? It means having or showing an ability to notice and understand things that are difficult or not obvious. If you are confused about when to use it, you can substitute it with keen, and it's going to be an appropriate use of the word. Examples of using this word in a sentence is she considers herself a perspicacious, which means shrewd or astute judge of character. You're encouraged to use it whenever you have the virtual stage. The second aspect of my role is to help us express ourselves better, and for that I'm going to be recognizing outstanding speakers, outstanding users of the English language. And finally, I'll be a perspicacious listener for our speakers in order to pick out their use of the English language as they put together their speeches. I'll give a brief report, language evaluation to each of the evaluators, and finally I'm going to give my full report at the end of the meeting when I'm called upon. Back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you, our super grammarian. When you notice that someone has used the word of the day perspicaciously, please remember to snap your fingers or use the hand clap emoji at the bottom of your screen. I will also call upon the general evaluator for the sake of completion at this juncture to introduce their role. Over to you, general evaluator.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests. My name is Mwanasha Mwamlole. I will be the general evaluator. The purpose of a general evaluator is to assist the club in becoming better and better. In Toastmasters, we use Toastmasters as an avenue for improvement. So my role is to point out things that were done well and things that would need improvement going forward. I know that Watabaruku Toastmasters Club differentiates itself from other Toastmasters clubs for its perspicacity. So I'm interested in finding out how well the evaluations go and how beautiful the speeches are delivered. Back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. And as I am perspicacious, I've noted our Toastmaster of the day is ready to roar. Our Toastmaster of the day is Samson Makodwol, corporate and commercial lawyer, public speaker, moderator, and communication enthusiast, an advocate of the High Court of Kenya with extensive experience advising businesses on complex commercial, regulatory, and governance matters. Samson's professional life routinely places him where interests collide, positions harden, and somebody still has to find the words that move the conversation forward. He has spent 13 years in Toastmasters, honing the art of communication while mentoring speakers and taking on various roles. As an accomplished debater and advocate, tough conversations are rather difficult to avoid. Lawyers, after all, have made an entire profession out of respectfully disagreeing with people and occasionally charging by the hour for it. Tonight, Samson invites you and me to go beyond speaking well and confront a more demanding question. Can we speak well when the stakes are high, opinions differ, and emotions enter the room? And perhaps, more provocatively, are we having enough of those conversations in Toastmasters? Please help me welcome the Toastmaster of the day, Samson Mark Odwol.
Thank you very much, President Kevin Rubia. Mic check, mic check. Can I be heard loud and clear?
Mic check, mic check. You can be heard loud and clear.
Thank you. First and foremost, my profound and sincere apologies for joining the meeting late. I've had a bit of a technological crisis where my main computer and phone, for some reason, which were connected, have seemed to be corrupted. Despite efforts to try and get that fixed, I was not able to do that, and had to try and reach out for some old devices to enable me to connect to this wonderful session this evening. So again, my apologies, and my hearty thanks to you, Mr. President, and the rest of the team for stepping in and guiding this meeting to ensure that we run on time. On account of time, we might not be able to observe the full protocols of this meeting. So typically, I pose certain questions to role takers and present their responses. I might have to skip that, so let me make sure we keep on time, because we value time in Toastmasters, and I'm sure the timer today has got a bit of itchy fingers as she wonders how to best run this session. Our theme today is how to lead tough conversations. Fellow Toastmasters and guests, last week, Friday, around about this exact time, I had the privilege and the opportunity to moderate a session at United Kenya Club, which some of you Toastmasters will be familiar if you're from Nairobi Toastmasters. That's where they hold their meetings. And I had the privilege to moderate an inaugural session, which was called the Members Baraza. And the theme of that talk was, what is the position of men in society? And are men actually losing their position in society? As you can imagine, that is quite a provocative conversation. And when you're trying to guide that conversation on a cross-generational basis, when you have an audience of people in the 70s, in the mid-40s, in the mid-24s, you can imagine the clashes of ideas that would occur. So while I was excited about this conversation, because it's something, even at Toastmasters, I've always wanted to give a speech around this, especially with the burgeoning of the manosphere, it's quite different when you're moderating a session. With a speech, your introduction could be, some platitudes about men and the toughness they go through. In the main body of the speech, you could pontificate about their challenges. And at the very end, you could placate the men in the session. However, when you're moderating this, you have to really tiptoe around the issue and appreciate that you're navigating a tough conversation. Things became even difficult when 2 days before the meeting, I was told that the members at UKC will be allowing ladies to join that meeting. So then no longer a pure men's meeting, but ladies will be allowed to come in because ladies are mothers. They're the ones who know how to mold their sons. They should be part of that conversation. And that is when I started to tread a little bit of sweat, because I knew here there could be a clash of gender opinions. There could be a clash of personalities. There may be people who will come with preconceived perceptions and would want to perpetuate a certain narrative. But I hailed and I marshaled all my skills. I apologize. I hailed and marshaled. I think that's that. Yes, I hailed and marshaled all my skills as a Toastmaster, all my skills as an advocate, and prepared myself for what turned out to be an amazing conversation. It's not a woman bashing conversation. It's a conversation geared towards resolution. Until the very end, and I apologize, ladies, this is by no means indictment on any of the ladies. This was just simply one lady who at the very end kind of took things topsy-turvy. And while the entire conversation was entirely respectful, she thought that we had just come to make excuses, that we were not owning up to our role traditionally as men, that women have certain biologically roles that cannot be exchanged and men must accept their traditional society roles. And it got me thinking, if she was being honest and not necessarily aggressive, if she was using a direct approach to address the issue, would one, just because of their gender, just conclude that we should not have had that conversation in the first place? At the end of the session, most of the men came to me and said, Makoduel, going forward, we want these sessions at UKC, we want them to be quarterly, but we want it to be a men's baraza. We don't want it to be a members' baraza. And so that brings me to today. How do we deal with tough conversations? Do we eliminate the other voice in the room? Do we pussyfoot around the issue and try not to be direct around it? What are the skills we need to employ that we learn at Toastmasters to have those conversations? What are some of the values that are inculcated in us that we can bring to fore for the purposes of having these tough conversations? These and more are some of the discussions that want for us to explore, to think about, to ruminate on, and to sort of come up in the final analysis with an idea of how we can approach tough conversations and determine whether Toastmasters might be the place, or maybe not the place, to engage in that pursuit. Without much ado, as I said, and I'm glad my various role takers have been introduced, I will now take on the privilege of introducing our first speaker. And our first speaker is Paul Mwanga. Paul Mwanga will be delivering a speech that will be evaluated in the style of Watabaruku by 3 evaluators. There'll be a content evaluator, there'll be a delivery evaluator, and there will be the super grammarian. At this stage, I would like to call the content evaluator, Kendi Mwabila, to introduce Paul Mwanga's speech and the objectives of that speech. Over to you, Kendi.
Thank you very much, TMOD Makodwo. It's been a minute since I've seen you, but good to have you here. This evening, we have a perspicacious speaker who will be evaluated perspicaciously by myself. And he is Paul Mwanga. Paul Mwanga will be delivering an icebreaker, which is a level 1, project 1. This will be an icebreaker speech from the path, the communication series, entertaining and storytelling. The title of Paul Mwanga's speech is still on the way. The objective of the speech is for him to introduce himself to this club so that we can get to know him a little bit better. Paul Mwanga, still on the way, Paul Mwanga.
This is my third icebreaker speech. I joined Toastmasters 4 years ago on 1st of June 2022. Since then, I have delivered speeches and participated in leadership roles both in the club and beyond. I've mentored new members and facilitated at club officer trainings. By any reasonable measure, I am not the same person I was 4 years ago. Tonight, I want to answer the question, why a third path? Reason 1. When I joined Toastmasters, I watched an experienced Toastmaster deliver a speech. It was effortless. I was wowed. Then life happened and she took a break. When she returned, the polish was gone. I could see her struggles. She had not stopped speaking. Speaking is a skill that disappears or fades without practice. If it could happen to somebody as experienced as her, then it can happen to me. And that is my first reason. I do not want to get into that situation just because I've been out of Toastmasters just for a while. Reason 2. As I prepared to deliver my first icebreaker speech, somebody held my hand and showed me the way. They did not have to. They already experienced and were also on their way to learn their own craft. But they stayed, saw me through as I struggled with practicing my lines. And I will never forget how that made me feel when I delivered that first speech. And because of that, I would like to stay in Toastmasters to continue holding somebody's hand. Without that, the next person who needs it may not find it. Reason 3. Toastmasters has over 300 projects across all the parts. With just 2 parts I've completed, this is just a fraction of what I can learn from Toastmasters. I am not choosing a third path because I have nothing else to do. I'm choosing a third path because there is a lot ahead of me than behind me. So Toastmasters and guests, that's my answer. Those are my 3 reasons. I'm staying in Toastmasters because I don't want to see what could happen if I'm just out of Toastmasters just for a little bit. And second, somebody held my hand and I'm now still available to hold out my own to others. And third, by staying in Toastmasters, there's a lot more to learn. I've just started, just a fraction of what I have learned before. I chose the path, the communication series, entertaining and storytelling. It is a legacy path, and I hope that path will teach me how Toastmasters used to grow before pathways. And with that, Toastmasters and guests, that is why I am still on the way. Toastmaster of the day.
Thank you very much, Paul Mwanga. A round of applause for Paul. Ladies and gentlemen, please show some love. Paul, I find that to be very interesting what you've spoken about, because for me, it comes to the heart of some of the conversations we need to have at Toastmasters. I've always posited and wondered, why is it that some people come here, learn about Toastmasters? This is a place where leaders are supposed to be made and then leave without holding the next person's hand, without passing the baton, without staying on to mentor. And I wonder whether we're tiptoeing around this issue, whether we are asking ourselves as leaders, why is that happening? What is our role? And truly as a leader, as much as I say your entire life should not be as Toastmasters, why not go on the journey and continue to mentor those who come after us? Some food for us to think, something for our leaders to think about as we navigate and we follow Paul's path towards continuing to pass on what he has obtained. Thank you very much, Paul. I will now proceed without much ado to our second speaker. And our second speaker today is Traicy Mamou. Traicy, I hope I've not murdered. I intended to call you to ask you how to pronounce your second name. I hope I haven't murdered your speech. But Traicy, will be evaluated by Leila Abdi. Leila Abdi, please let us know the title of Traicy's speech and the objectives of the same. Leila, over to you.
Good evening, Toastmasters. I have the pleasure of being on the lookout for the participation speech that shall be delivered by Traicy Mamou. Traicy Mamou will be doing her icebreaker speech as part of her persuasive influence path. The purpose of Traicy's speech is for her to introduce herself to us, to give us a perspicacious look into who she is. The speech will be taking 46 minutes long. Without further ado, help me welcome Traicy Mamou. Traicy Mamou, waiting for flowers, Traicy Mamou.
When I was little, my mother thought it'd be a good idea to broaden my little mind by using of stories. She gifted me a book of the classic Beauty and the Beast. The Beast lived in an enchanted, magnificent castle with a beautifully manicured rose bush, where every rose perfectly bloomed, the Rosa alba maxima. Thinking back, I don't think she understood that she was also introducing me to flowers. But at the moment, as I read on and looked at the pictures, all I thought was, wow. As I proceeded to peer over my book and outward toward our yard, we couldn't see any flowers. Just some little patches of grass here and there that really did their best, but we didn't have a garden. It couldn't really be because of space, because my aunt didn't live too far from us and she had a garden. Albeit she didn't grow roses, but she had flowers that strangely made her react like the Beast. If you even thought of going to pick those flowers, she'd give you a look that would make you reconsider your entire life choices. And I didn't understand that, because up to this point, Belle's father and I, Bob, we'll call him Sir Bob. Sir Bob and I had the same philosophy. Flowers simply existed. And true to our nature, Sir Bob reached over and plucked one of the flowers, only to be met by a towering beast who now demanded for his head. Call it luck, call it fate. My dad walked into the front door at that exact moment. Call it my childhood perspicacity. I resolved at that moment to never ask this man for flowers, because according to my extensive research, that is a sure way to increase one's chances of going to live with a beast. Yes, in a castle, but no, thank you. No. And as ridiculous as this conclusion may sound, this belief quietly stayed with me. And not more than 2 Valentine's Day ago, they paid a tremendous dividends, where I found myself at a themed Valentine's meeting, where the men were tasked and given roses that they should gift to a lady in attendance. There's a particular gentleman, let's just say I was hopeful about. The scene is set. He stands up and walks towards me. And he keeps walking way past me and hands his rose to someone else. And as I was watching all this unfold in slow motion, the inner child in me and I had a meeting. Traicy, yes. If we ask for the rose, we get the beast. Correct. If we wait for the rose, we don't get the rose. It would seem so. How about we just scrap the middleman and get the rose for ourselves? Agreed. And as we shook our hands in agreement, something snapped. At that moment, I understood that it was not just about the rose. That underneath it all, the flowers were teaching me something all along. That the beauty that the flowers reflected were not accidental. There was a signal to something underneath, something way bigger, something deeper, and that's hope. I present to you the evidence. My aunt fiercely guarded hers, while the beast meticulously cultivated his. All the little specks that, if we are not careful, would go through the pages of life and miss out on it. Now, today, I've stopped waiting on flowers. And not because I don't believe they will come. And if you see me carrying flowers, it's not for you to assume that they were gifted to me. And sometimes they are. But more often, it is a testament, an acknowledgement of that perspicacious little girl who believed in the beauty that still lives all around us, who's choosing to bloom in chaos, who's choosing to find fragrance in the ordinary and keep believing, dare I say it, in romance. Who has chosen at this moment to believe that she is the garden onto which the flowers will bloom. Back to you, Timothy.
Wow. Wow. Round of applause there for our lovely speaker, Traicy Mamou. I love that for the two speakers, with the first speaker, he spoke about being on the path of storytelling. And incidentally, the second speaker has deployed storytelling as a skill for the purposes of conveying a conversation. And a very interesting conversation for that, because I like the line, ask for the rose. When you ask for the rose, you get the beast. This clearly aligns to some tough conversations that we normally have in our relationships and how to approach them. And it's interesting because when I was talking to some of the role takers, storytelling was a practical skill they thought that could be deployed for tough conversations because it lowers defenses, it builds empathy, and it shifts focus from blame to shared understanding. So I would urge for most of us, even as has been demonstrated by our speakers today, to deploy storytelling whenever we are dealing with tough conversations. So thank you for those sessions. We have a feedback session that is presently on our screen. There's a poll that I would ask you to complete. I do apologize if I did not dwell as much on the first one, but I will give a few seconds. I see the poll is gone. Right, fine. I guess most people have answered. As we proceed with this, I posed 3 questions to our role takers today to allow them to think about this topic, because our theme questions are not just designed for us to introduce our speakers, but to give us an opportunity to actually challenge ourselves around the questions that are being raised. And the first question I'd ask the role takers is, take a moment to think of a difficult conversation that you did not have, a difficult conversation that you postponed. And ask yourself, why did you postpone that conversation? And what did postponing that conversation cost you? The second question was, between honesty and empathy, this being values that I identified as fundamental towards having tough conversations, which of the two do you believe is more instrumental, is more important when it comes to having tough conversations? And the third question is, which communication skills as a Toastmaster do you think that you should master? If there's one skill that you think is fundamental for the purposes of you having tough conversations, what skill is that? Now, I know the first question is a bit compounded, but perhaps in the chat, and I hope the chat master, you'll be working with me on this. As I said, I'm limited with my device, but I'd want for people to get into that chat and just think about it. Between honesty and empathy, which one do you believe would be more important in guiding tough conversations? And perhaps you can tell us why. And then of the skills that we gather as Toastmasters, what one skill do you think is indispensable in the art of leading and having tough conversations? And obviously the question is, why are we talking about this? And for me, it's an issue about the fact that we seem to tend to avoid tough conversations. And most of my speakers were quite honest, and most of the role takers were quite honest and vulnerable about this. I don't think not a single one says that they have never avoided a tough conversation in their life. And what I found very interesting and remarkable in the responses was that a good number of them related to work issues. In fact, 2 of them specifically spoke about avoiding engaging their supervisors, whom they thought embodied some sort of bias at the workplace along the gender line, and they did not want to create a toxic work environment. 2 spoke about personal issues, dealing with a family member who's going through mental health issues or alcoholism. 3, personal relationships. Very interesting that our last speaker was talking about Beauty and the Beast. In fact, hers was a tough conversation involving a relationship. And so the question is, why do we avoid these conversations? And I think the issue is we postpone them so that we can soften the landing space. We postpone them because we fear that tough conversations could lead into arguments. We avoid them because we want to risk conflict. We want to risk the feeling that the person might feel rejected. We want to conserve whatever relationship is there, no matter how fragile or tenuous it is. And most of the time, we fail to recognize the distinction between having a tough conversation and engaging in an argument. So, with that in mind, and going back to the chat, I hope you've been able to identify what is it that you can use as a value and as a skill that will guide you towards having meaningful and tough conversations. I will now turn to the second part of this meeting, which is the table topics. First and foremost, I see a few things popping. I thought I would see. So thank you very much for all those who are putting your answers in the chat. I'm looking at active listening, which is what one of our speakers talked about. So keep the chat going. This is more of a you solutions. I have no intention here to lecture or to give you the answer. I might be an advocate, I might be a Toastmaster, but I'm by no stretch of imagination an expert on the topic. This is a conversation that we must continue having amongst ourselves and find resolution as we seek to progress ourselves as leaders. As I mentioned, let's now move on to our second session, and this is the exciting session of table topics, which I anticipate for some is a tough project. It's a tough conversation in itself. And I wonder whether our table topics master today, Madam Nuha Abate, has prepared some tough questions for us. Nuha, being a Friday, I hope they're not too tough so that you can drive people to their local distillery after this because they've overthought about it. But I also hope they are stimulating enough for us to be able to advance the conversation. And with that, Nuha Abate, with the table topics, over to you.
Okay, thank you to Modi Samson. I'm going to keep it a little chill, but of course, I have used your team to craft the questions. I hope everybody enjoys it. So as my role as a table topics master is to facilitate table topics, which is an opportunity for Toastmasters and guests to participate, listening, critical thinking, and impromptu speaking. If you are interested in taking part, make sure to send me a text internally. So with that, I would like to start the question. I will be giving the question, the prompt, and then I will call out the names. So you will be required, or I encourage for you to speak in a structure, introduction, body, and conclusion. Madam Timer, please make sure to show us green at 1, yellow at 1:30, and red at 2. Okay, with that, let's start with the first question. Communication habits you've had to unlearn. What is one communication habit you had to unlearn? For this, I would like to call upon Toastmaster Hannah. Toastmaster Hannah?
Like okay. Toastmaster Hannah, not DTM Hannah, right?
Oh my God. My bad. DTM Hannah.
No, if there's a Toastmaster Hannah, it's okay.
Okay, I apologize for demoting you to the Toastmaster.
No.
The question is, what's one communication habit you've had to unlearn?
Good evening, Toastmasters and guests. And I will be honest, in the spirit of tough conversations, that I am in my pajamas and watching you all on a big screen. It's so interesting from my projector. Now, when I was 9, I used to do this sort of laugh. It was a communication style that I used to give adults when they cracked the driest jokes. And it was awkward for me not to laugh. And in the meantime, I thought no one would see me or see through me. And yet I had my Auntie Ellen. When I went and I visited her, and visitors came, and again, the adults did what they did. A dry joke after dry joke after dry joke. But 9-year-old Hannah complied with her driest laugh. It was only after the visitors had gone, my auntie sat down with me and said, Hannah, do you know that you don't have to laugh when you don't find something funny? I was shocked, perplexed, and vexed because as a 9-year-old Shona girl, and I'm sure this applies to many African young ladies, as a child, you think you are obliged as a communication style to react in a certain way in certain situations, particularly with adults. And I chose the fake laugh. But ever since I was 9, I have not given fake laughs. Well, maybe once or twice if I liked a guy and was hoping for flowers like Traicy. But in lieu of that, I let go of the fake laugh and I no longer oblige people with fakeness. Thank you, Toastmaster, Table Topics Master. Over to you.
Okay, let's give our DTM a round of applause because that was a beautiful answer. You were very humorous and I laughed throughout all the session. I'm pretty sure that mics were muted. That's the only reason why it kept quiet. For me, it was learning that I don't have to try to win every conversation because I either have to have friends or actually be right. And sometimes I choose friends. So yes, that is my reflection on that question. The second question I have is, have you ever received feedback that hurts at first but helped you later? Have you ever received a feedback that hurt you at first but helped you later? For this, I want to applaud Toastmasters Ade. Toastmasters Ade.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Toastmaster Nuhamin, for this opportunity to speak. Feedback is something I had to get used to getting because before the only form of feedback I accepted was applause and everybody cheering me on and saying nice things and just fluffing me up. But when I was going through school, I started getting a lot of feedback that also suggests that I need to improve things. And some deliveries, as you know, are not the greatest. So I started taking things personally. And instead of working on the things that I was getting feedback on, I would ruminate on the negative things, how I'm not good enough, and all the bad things that anyone can think of. I was doing that, and that type of feedback, that type of receiving feedback, really affected me. Specifically, I was told that I was not getting a good amount of work done, and I had a problem with time management and things like that. And that was something I really needed to hear. But like I explained earlier, I was just ruminating on and taking things personally, which hindered my progress. But later on, when I catch up to the whole thing being positive, I was able to work on it from the scratch and got some help, and I was able to manage my lack of time management. And so that is the feedback I received at the beginning, which I didn't take well, and then later on really served me well. Thank you, and back to you.
Thank you, Toastmasters Ade from Blue Nile. One of the hardest conversations you could have as a Toastmasters is actually giving feedback and receiving feedback. There is a whole science behind it. I cannot wait to be part of the workshop that's going to happen this weekend so that I can get to learn about it. Okay, the next question I have, it is, what is one phrase that instantly puts you on defense and why? What is one phrase that instantly puts you on the defense and why? For this, I would like to invite Toastmaster Ibtihal. 3. Okay, Toastmaster Ibtihal. Okay, so I would like to invite Toastmaster instead. Fatma? Okay.
I can hear you. Can you repeat?
Okay. So the question is, what is one phrase that instantly puts you on defense, and why?
One of the things that I keep struggling with is just being kind. Many at times at work, the minute someone tells me, "You're at it again," I am defensive. At times it gets me in trouble because it could be something that was not my deliverable, but here I am trying to help, trying to assist, leave everything that I was supposed to do, but fix whatever it is that was meant to be fixed. And anytime someone touched on that, I would be very defensive. I know the reality is boundaries, right? But at times when it comes to service delivery, why not? Trying to just fix things. But the minute someone asks, was it really your responsibility? Why are you always following up and doing things that were not meant for you? That really gets onto my nerve. Because once something has been done and it's not the right thing, why don't we just fix it? Why do I have to defend? Why do I have to speak? But I know boundaries, especially at work, that really matters. So from now henceforth, I try to just give a bit of time before fixing, because clearly the world is not meant to be fixed. There are some things that just require a bit of wisdom, a bit of time, and just trying to find out, is it really my space, or should I just let the right person handle it? As a keen listener, at times it's just waiting to find out, was that directed at me, or should I just wait a little bit so that I don't get asked, was that really necessary? Why did you have to fix again? Back to you, table topics master.
Wow. A round of applause. That was a very amazing response. I will have a lot of I have a lot of area of weakness. I am very open to your service. As you can see, we won't judge if you help us, if you serve us here. To reflect on that, I was thinking about this deeply, and for me, it is when people say it's not that deep, because, excusez-moi, I wrote a TED talk about it. And with that, I want to ask if I have one more time, if I have more time to ask a person. Madam Timer?
Unfortunately, time is up.
Okay. Thank you everyone for having me. Thank you, Toastmaster Fatma, for having me here. I loved serving as a table topics master, and back to you, Matt.
Thank you very much for that entertaining session as always, and thank you to all the speakers. I wonder if we have the poll ready so that at this juncture we can vote for who was the better table topic speaker. Right, it's just a name to be filled. Perhaps I could ask again, Nuha, for you to remind us if you have a list of the speakers. I know our first speaker was Hannah, the 9-year-old Shona girl. Who was our second, third, and fourth speaker? Could you just switch on your mic to remind members?
Yeah. Yes, it's correct on the list.
Sorry, Nuha, do you have the list of the other three speakers?
Yes, Mr. TMOD, I've listed Hannah Tarindwa, Sede Tegan, and Fatma Amiyo.
I do apologize. Yes. As I said, my device at the moment that I'm using. Apologies for
No
that.
problem
all right, 30
at all.
more seconds for you guys to vote on who you thought. I think I saw a question pop up around the issue of empathy, which I found very interesting. And I think somebody was trying to say, what if you employ too much empathy and you leave out a few things in the process of that? And one of my role takers, I believe that was Lorna Abaki, basically said gun to head, because she believes that honesty and empathy are equally important. But she said gun to head, between honesty and empathy, she would choose honesty delivered with empathy. If I didn't know better, I would think she is a lawyer. But I think there's a point in there, right? Our general evaluator, Dr. Mwanasha, actually also put it very well. Empathy and honesty are equally important. However, in the beginning, kick off the conversation with empathy, which must be the guiding tool. But remember to keep the conversation direct, tempered with kindness and honesty to avoid misunderstanding. So for the speaker, thank you who had put that question in the chat. I'm sure you can see a lot of people have ruminated over it. And let's keep thinking, how do we balance empathy and honesty, and what skills do we develop? At this stage, before we go to the third phase, which is the reports, I want to address an elephant in the Toastmasters room. Perhaps this is my elephant, and for you, it not necessarily is. So permit me to ask what might be an uncomfortable question this evening. Are we actually having difficult conversations in Toastmasters? Or are we simply becoming better at speaking comfortably? Today, we've had two Toastmasters speak. They were speaking in the Icebreaker project. We know what that entails. The objectives have been told. It's more about speaking to yourself, about yourself. But I wonder, and especially at Watabaruku, this is a challenge. Or perhaps I pose this question, maybe a challenge is too aggressive a term. As an advanced club, are we having those conversations? And if not, where should those conversations be heard? How many speeches genuinely challenge us and not merely tick a box in our journey towards becoming distinguished Toastmasters, once over, two over, three over, and getting our bragging rights? How many speeches and conversations do we have at Toastmasters that really make us rethink our deeply held beliefs? Deeply held beliefs around some things, but might be controversial, but run to the very heart and core of our society. We say this is the place where we have come for leaders to be made. And some school of thought thinks, yes, we could create incredulous and beautiful and excellent speakers. And perhaps we've equipped them with the tools, but where is the platform upon which they can exercise those tools before they go out there, where they can have conversations that touch on controversial issues ranging from family, sexuality, gender, equality, and things of the sort? How do we lead those conversations if perchance we are not having those conversations? And I'm not saying we are not. I've not the privilege of attending meetings in every Toastmaster meeting, but this is an ongoing conversation. And I wonder, would it be at meetings like this? Would we have to form special groups where those conversations are had? I know in competitions, we say that we should try and avoid those topics because they might alienate you from any judge who might have a different opinion. But in a Toastmasters room where we're saying we're creating a safe space, can we have this conversation? Or are we suffering from what some may term as a safe speech syndrome? Food for thought. And feel free to put in your comments in the chat. Let's have an idea of where you sit on this. I will now proceed to our first stage of the reports, and this is the evaluations. And the evaluations, as I've been mentioned, will be given in three subsequent formats. We'll have content evaluator, delivery evaluator, and the super grammarian. So for our first speaker, who was Paul Muwanga, I will now call upon the content evaluator, Kendi Mwabila, to issue that report. And then subsequent to that, she will introduce or let the transition move swiftly to the delivery evaluator, and so the same to the super grammarian. Kendi Mwabila, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, TMWD. Paul Mwanga, still on the way. What a wonderful speech and delivery. I can say for sure that it is evident that you perspicaciously prepared for this speech. Did we get to know you? Yes, we did. You dwelt on your Toastmasters journey, elucidating on your commitment to this fraternity. I found this to be very relevant for this audience, Toastmasters and aspiring Toastmasters. I followed your well organized speech, which had the fundamentals of a structured speech: an opening, a body, and conclusion, the ABCs of every speech we deliver at Toastmaster. You had an amazing flow of ideas, which unfolded again perspicaciously as you spoke. There were very smooth transitions that enabled us to flow with you consistently. You shared 3 reasons for taking up your third berth, and first was watching an experienced Toastmaster lose his skill after stepping away, receiving support in the form of mentorship, and your desire to pass the same to others. And at the very end, the desire to learn more. You were persuaded that you need to stay here to keep learning. So that was a fantastic speech. Now, what areas of improvement or what areas would I want you to work on? Paul, a great speech starts with a powerful introduction. To instantly connect with your audience, there are some tools that you can use. I felt I did not experience this. It's quite important to know that your audience relies on you to connect with them. And how do you do this? Your opening can either have a question, a quote, a statistic, a joke. If you're good at it, don't take chances. Now, what is an example of a quote that you would have used? You can say Tony Robbins, for example. It's not what he says is, it's not what we do once in a while that shapes our lives. It's what we do consistently. Similarly to Aristotle, who said, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. All this resonate within the title of your speech, and they reinforce the message that you're trying to bring out, or rather, the message that you brought out. Pause after the quotes and allow your audience to digest. You want to pull them in before you start speaking. Now, the same can also be applied at the conclusion. You had a fantastic body. I will not go into that. I already covered it. But now at the conclusion, what you did very well was summing up the 3 reasons. But you also needed a call to action for us. And again, you would have used this with a quote ending with a Chinese proverb, for example, that says, be not afraid of going slowly. Be afraid only of standing still. That takes us back to your title, and in that way, you drop the mic. I really enjoyed listening to you, and I look forward to seeing you grow beyond level 1 to finish level 5 of your third path. Over to you. Next to the next evaluator, Mr. Sang.
Thank you. Paul, I want to applaud you for the way you delivered your speech. What did I like about the delivery? First thing is the use of gestures. For instance, you talked of all those masters who, life happened and took a break, and you showed that to us with your hands. That's just but one of the instances. You also used one reason, 2 reasons, 3 reasons. What did that do? It helped to steer your message to our minds and to endear us to you. The second thing that I liked about your speech was your clear and confident voice. We could hear you well, and because you were clear, that made you believable and helped lean message. Now, what do I want, or what would I recommend that you look at? The first thing is the positioning of your device. I noted that you were like looking down on us, so the device was a bit down. You needed to it needed to be at your eye level, so that we are talking to us at the eye level. That's something that you need to do, and probably in the next speech, just log in and make sure that you check your device way before you start, before the meeting starts. The other thing I realized is the virtual background. Because you used a virtual background, then some of your movements were not visible to the audience. All in all, Paul, I congratulate you for a well-delivered speech. Keep using the gestures as you did, and keep being clear and confident as you speak. You might need to work on your positioning of your device and also avoid virtual background. Just use a plain background. Thank you, and over to you, Super Grammarian Robert Karanja, DTM.
Thank you, Toastmaster Sang. It was a great pleasure for me to listen to your speech this evening, Paul. What I loved particularly about your use of language is how simple and straightforward it is. There was nothing in your speech that I found difficult to follow or to understand. The sentences that you employed were short and simple and pretty easy for me to understand. One particular thing that stood out for me was the metaphor of someone holding your hand and your willingness to hold someone else's hand as a way to speak about what mentoring you have received in your time in Toastmasters. What I think you could do differently in terms of the use of the language is the use of visual language to make the people that you're talking about and the events that you're talking about vivid. So, for example, when you're talking about the kind of transformation that you have experienced in your time in Toastmasters, rather than simply saying, I am not the same person, you could use more powerful language, more specific language to demonstrate that regeneration or transformation that you've experienced in Toastmasters. In addition to that, you also referred a number of times to just a fraction of the skills that you've been able to gain in Toastmasters. Maybe something more visual would have been you have just touched the tip of the iceberg, or you've just dipped your toes into the waters of the competencies that you could experience in Toastmasters. So overall, I loved the simplicity and directness of your language. Something different you could do in future is using visual language to bring the people and events to life that you're speaking about. Thank you so much, and back to you, Mr. Toastmaster of the Day.
Thank you so much, DTM Robert Karanja and team, for those perspicacious evaluations. Indeed, as has been hinted, evaluations in themselves can be tough conversations. And I do hope that the speaker has taken that in good stride, both the positive and the constructive. We'll now move on to the second set of evaluations with an evaluation of Traicy's speech, which will be done by the content evaluator, Leila Abdi, the delivery evaluator, Lorna Abaki, and our super grammarian, Robert Karanja. To kick us off, and just in the same fashion as the previous evaluation, handing over subsequently, I apologize. Let us now begin with Leila Abdi with a content evaluation of the second speech. Leila, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Timothy Samson. A great speaker, a purposeful, perspicacious, proficient speaker is a speaker who takes us on a journey with their speech. Traicy Mamou, you began by taking us as if you put us in Elon Musk's spaceship and you took us back to time. And you immersed us in a moment where you began by saying, when I was little, my mother gave me a book. That hooks in, that you already have the hook at the alighting. Then you continued with your speech and you had a perspicacious, novel, and subtle way within which you took a known and well understood narrative of Beauty and the Beast and you came up with something very unique about it, which was the concept of flowers. And you took this flower, and this flower was your journey every step of the way. We followed you with the flower to the incident with your aunt and your father. We followed you again with the flower to that incident where you had your eyes set on a particular dashing bachelor, but his eyes, unfortunately, did not dash towards you, and yet you took it with grace. In that moment, you went ahead and turned it into a role-playing situation. There was inner Traicy, the younger child, and then there was Traicy, the adult, and you had a conversation, which is something that you actually excelled in. And then you took us further all the way to the conclusion where we were with you, as now not only were we looking at an outside garden, you had become the personification of the garden. And the quote which you said was, "She is the garden unto which the flowers bloom." Excellent. In terms of content, there was depth, there was detail, and there was decisiveness in how you continued with the speech. One thing I would encourage you to improve on is with your transitions. Pause or figure out a way to weave it all in and to bring it back in again towards the end. Because you took us through many stops with your mom, with your aunt and your uncle, with your aunt and your father, sorry, with the bachelor that you met, right? So there were many characters in the story. There was Beauty and the Beast in between, in betwixt the story. And so when you take us on this beautiful journey that you have taken us, try and tie it all in. So to sum up, you had a wonderful beginning. The body of your speech was enriching, enticing, and encapsulated what you wanted us to take home. And your conclusion was it left us with a feeling of you now becoming home to yourself. So there was that connection towards the end. Having said that, I would like to tell you to move on. You've done well in regards to the content, and I would like to move on to give it up to our delivery evaluator, Lorna Abaki.
Thank you. Thank you. Traicy, Mamou, your speech titled Waiting for Flowers. Wow, amazing. Today, with a perspicacious eye, I'd like to celebrate two flowers that bloomed so beautifully in your delivery and one seed that, with a little nurturing, will help your speeches even blossom even more. The first flower was your physical presence. From the moment you came on screen, you projected confidence. Your gestures were natural, purposeful, and complemented your message beautifully. Rather than distracting us, they helped paint the picture of your story and kept us engaged. The second flower was your voice. Your voice was clear, and every word was easy to hear. You spoke with confidence, making it easier for us to follow your journey. And as you continue to grow, don't be afraid to add more vocal variety. Maybe a change in pitch or tone can help your audience feel the emotions behind your words and not just hear them. Now, for the seed I'd encourage you to plant is the power of the pause. At times, your story moved quickly, and some beautiful moments passed before we had time to fully appreciate them, just as flowers cannot be rushed to bloom. Meaningful moments in a speech need time to blossom. Trust the silence. A well-placed pause allows your audience to reflect, to connect with you, and truly absorb your message. Otherwise, congratulations on delivering your icebreaker. I thoroughly enjoyed Waiting for Flowers, and I genuinely look forward to hearing more of your speeches as you continue your Toastmasters journey. And now I pass it to the evaluator, DTM Robert Karanja, the speech language evaluator. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lorna, for that evaluation. What I particularly loved about your speech, Traicy, was your use of rhetorical devices. For example, there was a point in your speech where you put together three different ideas by starting them with choosing, to keep, and that made them stick in my mind. In addition to that, when you're describing the similarity or comparing your aunt to the beast, where you said your aunt fiercely guarded her garden while the beast meticulously cultivated his, I thought that was quite well put, and it also stuck in my mind. In addition to that, there were other beautiful phrases that you used that were quite visual in terms of making them stick in my mind. Some where you said something snapped in your brain and paid tremendous dividend, where you're talking about the towering beast. What I think you could have done differently was when you were talking about the flowers at the very beginning of your speech. The scientific name of the speech, I think, or the correct name of the speech is not something that will stick in my mind, but maybe going deeper and describing the flower with and comparing it to something that will be easier for us to remember might be a better way of approaching it. And also, when you're talking about the garden, when you compared your garden to the garden that you have read in the books, using language that would show how much it did not live up to that image that you would have desired might have been a better approach in terms of making it, bringing your words to life and bringing those descriptions and differences better out for us to understand. So overall, I love the rhetorical devices that you used, the beautiful language that you had, and maybe using those using descriptive language to bring the story more to life. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster of the day.
Thank you very much, Leila, Lorna, and Robert for those evaluations. Before I proceed to my remarks, I'd like for us to pull up a poll. I might forget it once I start getting into a bit of the development of the theme. If we have the poll ready, please put them up so that we can vote for who we think was the best evaluator. Thank you very much. And as you vote, I think we all appreciate that evaluators perhaps have the hardest conversations of all, at least within a Toastmaster setting. Their task is not particularly one of praising or criticizing. Rather, it's that of helping someone become better. Real evaluation in itself is a difficult conversation. How to balance being genteel with hints for how to improve, how not be too harsh so as to make somebody's confidence suffer. Great evaluators practice what great leaders practice, and that is candor delivered with compassion. Put differently, I guess that is what we said, is honesty delivered with empathy. And we must realize that evaluation is the first step, of course, within which to grow ourselves as leaders in tough conversations, because leadership rarely begins in a crowd. It usually begins with one difficult conversation between a manager and an employee, between a spouse and another, between a friend and another friend telling an uncomfortable truth, between a child and a parent. In fact, one of the things we're exploring at our UKC discussion last week was how sometimes fathers have a challenge engaging with their sons because they don't want to embarrass them. And sons, on the other hand, don't know how to approach and have a conversation with their fathers because they feel they might be embarrassed, and the fathers might be not particularly welcoming, requiring him to be a man. And so within that context, in as much as I have posed the larger question, and we'll come back to it, we must always appreciate that the one-on-one, the smaller conversations is where we start building our skills for having tough conversations. I believe we have had ample opportunity to vote. Yes, the poll has closed. We'll now move straight forward to the remaining reports. Timer, I know normally we don't give you time here. I should expect that perhaps you have posted the timings for the speakers and the table topics and evaluators, but if you have not, you could briefly give us a time schedule on that, and perhaps just within the timetable indicate how we're doing with time as at this point. That will be followed by a report from the super grammarian. So over to you, Akaco Ekirapa, for the time, a very brief and concise timers report.
Thank you, Mr. Temodi. We are now at 8:30 exactly. And as per the schedule, we have managed to catch up with time. Unfortunately, we started late. but the meeting started at 7 sharp. However, we had a few technicalities with the TMOD joining. The prepared speeches started at 7:31, with the first speaker taking 5 minutes 14 seconds. Second speaker took 5 minutes 58. The table topic session also went over time. It took 12 minutes. First speaker took 2 minutes 29 seconds. Second speaker 2 minutes 2 seconds. Third speaker 2 minutes 10 seconds. The evaluations also managed to stay within time on average, with the first session taking 7 minutes. First speaker 3 minutes 20 seconds. Second speaker 2 minutes 34 seconds. Third speaker 2 minutes and 3 seconds. The second session took 6.5 minutes. First speaker 3 minutes 30 seconds. Second speaker 1 minute 48 seconds. And the third speaker 2 minutes and 9 seconds. I will put the times in the chat, and I have taken 1 minute and 35 seconds. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Akaco. Incidentally, one of the tough conversations I had as a Toastmaster was with one, I think, DTM Robert Ken Agutu, around me being a seasoned Toastmaster who's still not able to manage my time. So I'm really hoping we can keep this within the time frame. And with that, Super Grammarian, please give us your report.
Thank you, Toastmaster of the Day. I'll go right into it. First of all, in terms of the usage of the word of the day, Mwanasha used it once, our president used it twice, Kendi used it 4 times, Leila used it 4 times, Traicy used it 2 times, the TMOD used it once, and in the chat, we had Jamal and the VPE using it. For pause fillers, we had 1 pause filler from the TMOD, 5 pause fillers from Nuhamin, and 3 pause fillers from DTM Hannah, and a bouquet of pause fillers from Tzadeh. In terms of the phrases that I loved, I first of all loved how when the timer was introducing her role, rather than using the same word change for the way she'll be changing the signals, she used change transition, then, or instead of just using the background, said flag background signal. I thought that introduced great variety. For the TMOD, had beautiful phrases, burgeoning of the manosphere, pussyfooting, deploy storytelling, fragile and tenuous, safe speech syndrome. Paul, our speaker, had the polish had gone. DTM Hannah had shocked, perplexed, and vexed. Tzadeh had fluffing me up. And also she said ruminating on negative things. The VPE had assuaged. Then elucidate your commitment to this fraternity from Kendi. Sear your message to our minds and endear you to us from Sang. And finally, I would like to celebrate 2 flowers and that flower imagery that Lorna used in her evaluations. What we could improve in future, what we could do different in terms of our use of language is, rather than saying doing a speech, you could be more polished and say deliver or present. There was a mispronunciation of the word instantly, and one of the things that teachers used to bully us in primary school was when you say, can I use the bathroom? And so when someone said, can you repeat the question? Maybe you could have said, please repeat the question. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster of the Day.
Thank you very much, Robert Karanja. And one expression I liked from the evaluation was a bouquet of pause fillers. I feel like that's just the right balance. You know, you're calling somebody out, but when you package it in a bouquet, that's a soft cushion that somebody can just absorb and say, all right, next time I'm gonna work towards just getting 1 rose instead of a half a dozen. We will now move to the final, well, not necessarily the final section, but within the speech structure, this is what brings us to full circle, and that will be the General Evaluator's report. The general evaluator for today is Dr. Mwanasha Mwambole. And if you could allow me at least just for the GE, she says that one conversation that she delayed was one that relates to mental health of a family member who was seemingly acted out. And that came at a cost, which was manifest in a more turbulent transition into proper care and treatment. As I'd mentioned before, for her, honesty and empathy are equally important, but the conversation must be guided and commence with honesty as its guiding principle. What skill must you have that is indispensable towards leading tough conversations? Nothing for her is more impactful than direct speech tempered with kindness, for this will avoid misunderstanding. Basically, get in there, say it as it is, but always remember to be kind when you do so. Dr. Mwanasha Mwambole, over to you for the general evaluation.
Thank you very much, Toastmaster Samson. Good evening once again, fellow Toastmasters and guests. I had promised at the beginning of the meeting that Watabaruku Advanced Toastmasters Club is known within the Toastmasters space as a perspicacious club, and true to form, you managed to meet those expectations for those who are coming for the first time. I'd like to divide my evaluation into two parts: before the meeting and what I noticed during the meeting. So before the meeting, we have 3 moments of excellence, or 3 moments where the club outshined itself. And that is that you displayed preparedness. Congratulations, Vice President Education Fatma, for ensuring that the role takers were ready with all the knowledge. There was a dry run that was held on Wednesday for anyone who was participating in this meeting. Posters for every single role taker were ready on Monday evening and dispersed. And the role takers had their jobs or what they wanted to elucidate on prepared by Wednesday. So the Toastmaster of the evening already asked his questions over the weekend. Last weekend, we had the word of the day given earlier in the week. We had a display by the Vice President Education on a guide on how to perform the roles. So congratulations, Watabaruku. That is well done. You're clearly outshining many of us. What was great during the meeting? During the meeting, it started with the SAA playing music and taking time to invite anyone who walked into the room. She also had a pre-game, which was interactive and fun, on what is unlike the other, the exceptional game. And she had slides when introducing her role. The president did a fantastic job on welcoming guests, asking them where they're from and giving them an opportunity to speak, as well as our residing former district director, Robert Karanja, inviting him to speak. The timer cards had the word of the day on them as they were being changed. And the president kept the meeting going, even when the Toastmaster of the evening was struggling to join. The evaluation and topics were in theme and were bountiful in terms of the critique and praise given. The topic. Congratulations, Toastmaster of the Day, for introducing what I think is a topic that has plagued, or an element of authenticity that I feel is missing in Toastmasters. And that is, how do we become more honest as Toastmasters and within Toastmasters? It is something that I have been considering. And that was hammered throughout the meeting, as well as the speeches that were given, particularly the first icebreaker, which was the third icebreaker for Paul, where he was talking about why he's staying in Toastmasters. Because I've been asking myself how long I'm going to continue staying in Toastmasters. So maybe more meetings that are more authentic in Toastmasters will help us along for sure. And it's a good way for us to think about approaching Toastmasters with more depth and honesty, as I've mentioned. What can we work on? I believe that we can work on the consistency of pinning. I noticed that for the first set of evaluations, there was no pinning that was happening. Then it was introduced for the second set of evaluators. We should also try and work on figuring out how to deal with dead space or a moment of silence for, as Mr. President mentioned. So there were two instances where this happened. The first was when our SAA talked about over to the president, and then I waited, I figured what was happening next, and the president made a good joke. Well done, Dr. Rubia, but there should be a way for us to transition, because Toastmasters is also a space for us to practice our communication. And this is an opportunity for us to figure out how we're going to fill in dead space. The second moment was when Mr. President was trying to figure out when the Toastmaster of the day was coming. So maybe some communication ahead of time so that we eliminate those dead spaces. However, you handled it well and you managed to keep us within the program as you were talking about, as you introduced myself, the timer, and the super grammarian. So you managed to get us in check in terms of time and the agenda. Another thing that you could possibly consider splitting is the super grammarian's job. As able and capable as Robert is, I think it is quite a bit for him to not only listen in for how well language was used, but also to evaluate at the same time. That is a lot of time to speak. And I feel like that might hinder or might overwhelm the person who's taking on the role. And it means that I know that it's a role that requires an element of perspicacity. Maybe it's being lost because he's evaluating the speakers, he's thinking of how he's going to deliver his evaluation, as well as now giving a general view of what words were used and what was catchy. Maybe that can be given to someone else so that it doesn't feel as unfinished and unpolished as it ends up becoming. All in all, as usual, it was an honor to be at the most perspicacious club in the district, and I look forward to being here again. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster of the evening.
Thank you, and a hearty thank you very much, Dr. Mwanasha, for that very candid and wholesome evaluation. We cannot proceed as leaders or as field speakers or even as people who organize these sessions without that wholesome feedback. As I wind up, of course, allow me once again to project my apologies for the delay and the mishap. Been a bit flustered, but that's what we do as leaders. You just get up and go on and plow on and hope that things will work out for the best. Tonight, as in every other night at Toastmasters, we have celebrated communication. But tonight was particularly important because we're trying to venture into the space of tough communications. And while we've acknowledged, whether it's through the question, what conversations do you avoid and why, and what skills should you employ within private settings? What courage should we find to be able to actively listen, to be able to speak with empathy, to direct people respectfully to change their minds? I think for me, the key issue is how can we take this conversation at Toastmasters to the next level? And I wonder if Toastmasters is not the place where educated, respectful, and ambitious people can practice discussing issues that divide society, then where is this? Right? It might not necessarily be at a Toastmasters meeting, but I'd want to challenge fellow Toastmasters to find those spaces where they can engage in those conversations as they pursue this noble leadership journey that is Toastmasters International. As I depart, when having tough conversations, there's one skill that I noticed cut across and even came out in the chat, and that is active listening. And I'm going to paraphrase perhaps one of the role takers' responses, who said that active listening is one that allows a leader, and this is now paraphrasing, to appreciate others' experiences, to apprehend through clarifying questions, and to ascend through thoughtful responses. We must create trust for honest, respectful, and impactful conversations. Some of the things we've had here today sound obvious. I think you may have had them. Nothing really here is new, probably just presented in a more colorful way. But why is the problem then? Why are we still not having those conversations? I think that's because we take this as nuggets of truth and preserve them for occasions where we can deliver them as quotable quotes, super speeches, and profound presentations. My challenge to us today is to masticulate what you've heard, to ruminate upon it, and to only regurgitate it with intentionality. When all is said and done, let us practice what we preach. And over to you, Mr. President.
Wow. When will you be releasing a dictionary? Thank you so much, our Toastmaster of the day, not only for letting us learn how to lead those difficult conversations, but showing it yourself by joining this meeting amidst difficulty. Thank you so much for your words of wisdom, for the dictionary, and for the advice. Over to our Sergeant at Arms to announce the winners of our polls today. Madam Sergeant at Arms.
Thank you, Mr. President. Please confirm you can see my screen. Any thumbs up would do.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up will do. Great, thank you. The certificates that I'm about to display are for the best table topic speaker, best evaluator, and best speaker. The best table topic speaker was, drum rolls, Hannah Taringwa. Uh-oh. There you go. Hannah Tarindwa. Guys, drum rolls. I'm hoping to see hands. Thumbs up. Okay.
Woohoo! Yay!
Thank you. Thank you. That's the energy.
Sorry, I was look. I'm a millennial. I was looking for the microphone.
Thank you, guys.
I was really hoping someone celebrates that loudly because you deserve it. The second best evaluator, there were 3 best evaluators. It was a tie. How magical is that? Drum rolls, guys. Before the first reveal, give me a thumbs up, give me a clap or something. No? Okay. Kendi Mwabila. Thank you. The second best evaluator, drum rolls, guys. Once again, Robert Karanja. The third best evaluator, Lorna Abaki. Quite surprising for me, they all tied. And to the best speaker tonight, drum rolls, Traicy Mamou. Back to you, Mr. President.
Much obliged, our Sergeant at Arms. Well done to those who won and to all of us for participating in this meeting, this online experience. Well done. I have some announcements. First is to congratulate our icebreaker speeches. Paul Muwanga, congratulations for delivering your icebreaker to Watabaruku for your third path. Well done. Feel free to share your emojis, friends. Mamou, Traicy, in the same fashion, congratulations to you for delivering your icebreaker today. We are on a roll at Watabaruku with icebreakers. Well done. Then you'll notice in the chat, our chat master has posted details on this online workshop that we'll have next week. Please join us and save the date. And for now, we will have the International Convention in Vancouver, Canada. During this period, we'll have an annual business meeting of Toastmasters International, where we are charged as a club to designate a proxy holder for someone who will vote for us during this annual business meeting that will be held hybrid. Over to you, Madam Secretary, to handle that business matter.
Thank you, Mr. President. Toastmasters and guests, Article 10, Section 5 of the Club Constitution states as follows. This club is entitled to representation at the annual business meeting as provided in the bylaws of Toastmasters International, and at any other meetings of the voting members of Toastmasters International, and at district and area council meetings. This club shall select its proxy holders of the annual business meeting, which will be held on 19th of August, or other meetings of the voting members of Toastmasters International, in sufficient time for the club president or club secretary to validate the proper credentials for them. Today, I pass a motion to nominate the club president, who is Dr. Kevin Rubia DTM, as our club proxy holder. And I'll pause for a few seconds and ask if there is any objection to that nomination. Any objection? Going once, twice, thrice. With no objection, in accordance with Robert's Rules of Order and the Club Constitution, and without objection, I hereby declare Dr. Kevin Rubia DTM president of Watabaruku Advanced Toastmasters Club, as the nominated club proxy holder at the Toastmasters International Annual Business Meeting. Over to you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, our club secretary, Mine Minor DTM, for that. If you guys would like me to join the meeting in person, feel free to contribute. I wouldn't mind representing you in person in Vancouver, Canada. Before we adjourn this meeting, I'd like us to take a screenshot to commemorate this. So please put on your videos, friends, and as we commemorate the 140th online experience of Watabaruku Advanced Toastmasters Club, for those of us who can put on our videos. Hannah, it's okay. If you are still in your pajamas, it's fine. But this, by the way, this will be shared. So just you guys need to know. Or I should send you the USD account. I will. Great. In 3 to 1, what will we say? Do we say masticate, ruminate, regurgitate? Let's say, no, let's say sweet. Sweet, because we can't smile. So in 3 to 1, we say sweet, and then I'll take 3, 2, 1, sweet. Again, just in case, please don't put in the, okay, there's the chat, okay. Sorry if you can't put it. Sweet. The last one, sweet. Thank you. Now let's do some crazy one. This one is a crazy one. So in 3 to 1, you do crazy. 3, 2, 1, crazy. Crazy. The last one, crazy. Thank you very much. Madam VPE, would you like to ask for any roles for our next online meeting?
For those who were interested in serving as evaluators, kindly reach out. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam BPE. And as we still have time, I'd like to hear from those of us who have not had an opportunity to speak. We'll start with Ibrahim Abdi. Hi, Ibrahim.
Yes, fine, great.
Thank you for joining us. How did you find out about our meeting? And how did you find this meeting to be?
Yeah, I find it very, very, very nice, very educative. It's flowing. I learned it from Fatma as well. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. Mwikali Mwango of Beyond Borders, tell us about your club and how did you find this meeting to be?
Thank you very much, President Kevin. Beyond Borders is formerly WSP RBN. We're excited to have renamed it. It has moved now from a corporate to a community club. So we're looking for members. You're all welcome. We meet every second and fourth Wednesday from 1 to 2 p.m. So I think we're one of the few clubs who meet during lunchtime. And yes, we can have a meeting within 1 hour. So this meeting was riveting. There's always much to learn from Watabaruku. So well done. And I look forward to taking on a role soon.
Thank you very much, Mikali. And congratulations on the rebranding. We can't wait to join you at lunchtime. Hopefully there's also physical food. Last and not least for now, we'll have Lucy Murunga. Let us know about her experience in this online meeting and how she got to know about the club. Hi, Lucy.
Yes, hi. I wasn't expecting to be called out, but yeah. So I found out about the meeting through Akaco. I saw her post. I think it was today or yesterday on LinkedIn. So I just joined in to like support her, and I really enjoyed the conversations. Yeah. So kudos to all the speakers. I hope to join again next time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll make sure we have Akaco as a role taker so that you can join next time. Thank you, Akaco, for bringing her. It is 9 p.m. East African time. Remember, we can still stick around for those of us who'd like to. I officially declare this online meeting adjourned.